Here we go with Freedom Wins. Haven't seen, like I said before, if you missed it, make sure to check out the Absurdity Observer that I did last time for November, issue number 36. And we're going to do December here coming up, and number 37, which is in already. It's sitting right there. Right there. So I'm a little bit behind, but we're going to catch it up today with the Freedom Wins. We're going to finish with these. Let's go quick and dirty because that's how I like it. And we're gonna get these done. And like I said before, it will motivate us and uplift us to go about our day feeling grand, feeling swell, and making a difference in this world. Here we go. Freedom Wins. For anybody who's not familiar with this concept, series, column, whatever, watch the previous videos. Charges against Druthers news creator Shawn Jason Laplante for the crime of committing journalism, bad boy, during the lockdowns have been dropped. Hey, big surprise, justice was served. In February 2021, Shawn was charged in contravention of Ontario's stay-at-home orders while filming a protest at Queen's Park in Toronto. At his final court hearing, the judge stated that freedom of the press is essential and dismissed the charge. Would have been nice if they just said that at the beginning, since that is, the truth. That's kind of the idea, right? The video of Shawn's offense and interaction with the police can be viewed at, and it gives the address, but you can look that up if you want to see it. I'm sure, I have no doubt, Shawn probably behaved himself more rationally and civilly, I guess you could say, than I probably would have. But good for him for taking the high road. I think it's important to demonstrate a good example like that. Unvaccinated tennis star Novak Djokovic, who was denied entry into last year's U.S., Australian, and French Open due to being unvaccinated, so they try to make an example out of him, wins the U.S. Open and a 24th Grand Slam title, officially making him the man with the most wins in tennis history. Wow. Tried to get in the way of that, huh? No way. He wasn't having it. Good for him. A Saskatchewan labor arbitrator orders Regina Co-op refinery to rehire men who were fired for refusing to get vaccinated or tested for COVID. The arbitrator noted that the two longtime employees in good standing posed no health hazard to other employees. That's because they got sick with a flu, then they got over it, and then they became immune to it, and then life went on. Is there anything really that remarkable there? It's kind of what the human body does. Charges against Evan Blackman, a Freedom Convoy protester who was arrested for singing "O Canada." I don't know why you'd want to sing that silly song in the first place, Evan. While kneeling in front of a police line, have been dismissed. Blackman was initially taken into custody and charged with mischief and obstructing police. Wow. Singing a song is mischief and obstructing police. So murder is a pat on the back, I guess, right? Crown prosecutors drop bail violation charge against Freedom Convoy organizer Tamara Lich. Lich was released on bail in early 2022 after spending more than 2 weeks in jail following her arrest in the final days of the Freedom Convoy. The charge of violating bail conditions originated from her alleged communication with another protest organizer, Tom Marazzo, in Toronto, where she was receiving recognition at a gala. Ooh, broke the rules by going to a gala. She was then arrested on a Canada-wide warrant for that, and spent more than another month behind bars before being released again. So I wonder, I read this one earlier today, and a thought occurred to me, do these people, I really hope they're filing lawsuits after that against everybody involved. The police, Canada Inc. I mean, anybody whose hands are dirty from this, I really hope they're doing something, taking them to the cleaners, something, because they shouldn't get away with that. You've lost, I don't know how much time she spent in jail, but any time behind jail is time you're never getting back. And they had no right to do that because you were released without any charges being pressed. So it's just, again, it's one of those things, like I was saying last time, in 2023, really, as a species, we're really still dealing with that. Like, we're still so far behind where we should be. We're so far behind our potential. It's really a shame. It's the biggest tragedy of all. The human story, I hate to say it, I don't want to sound like a cynic or a nihilist, but I hate to say it, it's not going to end well. It's going to be one of those, unfortunately, those sad stories, the tragic story of failed potential. Because as a species, we're very similar to an irrational teenage boy that just thinks with his balls. Okay, I can say this because I was once that. And I know what it is to be led by those urges and those feelings and those um, the logical, rational part of yourself. It's not that you're not taking it into account. It doesn't exist anymore. You're just being led almost completely by the reptilian part of the brain. It's very instinctive, very uh, hormonally driven, and tragic because the individual, especially in our day and age and in our societies where there is no initiation process, there's no coming of age story for our young ones, unfortunately. They find themselves being kids for far too long, and then bam, it's like a punch in the face. You're an adult now, and you've waited actually way too long before you've mentally accepted the fact that you are an adult and it's time to start behaving like one and living like one and taking responsibility like one. So it's like it takes too long to get there, but then when they get there, because it took so long, it just fucks them up even more, and then they're permanently damaged after that. Like a kid, a human should not be doing childish things and thinking like a child into their 20s. Even like late teens is pushing it, you know? If a coming of age typically would have been around puberty, let's say, 11, 12 years old to maybe 14, 15, you know, um, that would be the time. That would be the classic time where you would go from being a kid to an adult. And then from that day forward, you are an adult for all intensive purposes. You are an adult. You can do adult things. Your body is becoming pretty much an adult. You're however much percent of the way there. You're practically there. You can reproduce. To me, that's not maybe the only sign that one is an adult, but that's definitely one of the big ones. Are you able to reproduce? Then you've kind of crossed the line there. But in our societies, we don't have that clear marker. So we end up, a lot of people, I should say, end up just staying kids for way too long because they haven't had that initiation. They haven't had that ceremony, that ritual that confirms and affirms in them that they are now, yes, you are officially a man or a woman. You've crossed that line now. It's time to put aside childish things and start acting accordingly. Anyway, that was a bit of a side note, but an important one, I think. But the reason I brought that up is that's what's mostly responsible for the fact that our young people are very confused and they don't know if they're coming or going as far as, am I an adult, am I a kid? How do I behave? What's acceptable? What's not? What's going to be expected of me in the future? It's a tough lesson. It's a tough thing to sell to a young person these days. The idea of growing up. Why would you want to? For some of them, why would I want to be a kid? They could just act like that's not good either. Right? The province of Saskatchewan passed a bill that prohibits schools from keeping students' gender transition a secret from their parents. How could you pass a bill for that? That's strange. Bill 137, of all the things, of all the things right now we could be occupying our time with, and all the problems that need solving. Bill 137 comes along to distract us from the important things. No. Dubbed Parents' Bill of Rights, also requires teachers to have parents' permission to use students' preferred names and pronouns. I couldn't imagine. Okay, my kids are both homeschooled, but I could not imagine having my kids in a public school system in this day and age. And damn, things change quickly. It seems like just the other day that these things would have been unacceptable in schools, but the amount of time, and the amount of resources they spend on just unnecessary shit, stuff that just is inconsequential, trivial stuff that is really a waste of time. And not only that, it has no business in the school system. You know, it's not the teachers and the principal's job to teach sexuality to kids. That's the parents' job. You know, you need to have your time. You know your time, know your place, know your role. You know what I mean? That's what we've forgotten here. These lessons don't come from a teacher. Most of these lessons will come from real life experience of doing, not being told, not, no. This is not one of those things where you can fake it till you make it. Real life doesn't work that way. You got to go out there and do it. You got to fail. You got to get up and do it again. Keep doing it until you're good at it. That's what these kids are not learning these days. They're not learning those hard lessons. I saw the best thing the other day. I forget where I saw it. I think it was on Parts Unknown. I love anything Anthony Bourdain. And I was watching Parts Unknown. I think it was one of the last ones. Might have been the last episode, actually. But he was talking to some guy that was a musician, I think, punk rock musician or alternative. I'm not sure. But he also had like a martial arts place. And he taught to kids. I don't know what his martial art was exactly. Maybe mixed martial arts. I'm not sure. But I just love this one scene where there's a bunch of kids running around and stuff, and they're probably like 4 or 5 years old, maybe a bit older. They're all running in different directions, and he was just kicking this big yoga ball. He was just kicking the ball into them. The ball was bouncing off their heads, and they were running into each other, and it was. I just imagine this guy's pitch to the parents is like, the parents are bringing their kids to him probably because their kids are, for lack of a better word, wussies. Okay, sorry to use offensive language if that offends you, but they're weak. They're not tough. Okay, opposite of tough, whatever soft word you want to use for that, whatever euphemism you're comfortable with, that makes you feel warm and fuzzy inside. Use that. Translate it. But for lack of a better word, their kids are pussies, and I can only imagine that his pitch is like, "Well, I'll toughen them up. Don't worry. Just sign this waiver in case anything happens, and we'll toughen up your kids. Don't worry. It'll be as safe as possible, but there's going to be some risks." And that is the kind of parenting. That is the kind of approach we need to have with kids. You cannot shelter them. You cannot try to protect them from everything in the world. They will end up being very fragile that way. They will end up being afraid of everything. They have to run around and they have to fall down. They got to scrape their knees. They got to fall off their bike. They got to do stupid shit. And they got to get over it. They got to get hurt. They got to break stuff and cut stuff and scrape stuff and burn their hands on the hot stove. It's the only way. It's the only way. We cannot protect them from everything around. Anyway, I just love this guy's approach of just kick the ball into the. It was just so funny because really, it's not really hurting them. It might be a bit shocking at first, but I'll bet you those kids love that. They love it because it doesn't really hurt them all that much, but it toughens them up. They fall down and they get back up, and that's the whole concept. That's exactly the point I was trying to illustrate. Two more to go. Freedom wins. I kind of stretched it out a little bit with my yammering. Hopefully, you're getting some value out of that, because I think I'm making some good little side notes. Here's the before last one. Farewell to Snow White and the seven politically correct companions. In response to significant backlash from fans, Disney has reevaluated its direction for the live-action adaptation of Snow White. Originally, there were plans to replace the iconic characters with a diverse ensemble of magical beings representing a range of sizes, races, and genders. Boy, I'm so sick of that. However, in light, like, I don't even care if things are all white, they're all black, they're all, Chinese. I just don't care anymore. I don't care what what they are. Make them whatever you want. It's all the same to me. I just don't care. It's like, again, it's one of those things, like, such a waste of freaking time. Fighting and arguing and changing the creative process for this. And first of all, if that's a problem, right? If you have a bunch of white male dwarves or little people, whatever the politically correct term is, if that's the way that it was then don't reboot it. Leave it as is, because it's an important piece of history. You don't have to replicate it. You don't have to reboot it. Make something else. Make something else that's inclusive. That's making these magical beings that are of all sizes, races, and genders. That's something else. So do that instead of rebooting something that's completely the opposite of it. Makes no sense. Anyway, in light of the public's strong reaction, as I'm having right now, Disney has opted to remain faithful to the classic portrayal of Snow White's seven dwarfs. So in other words, they haven't vainly tried to recreate the past and pretend like things didn't happen a certain way when they did. And quite honestly, a white cast of seven little dwarves and a very old cartoon, is that really a big deal? Would it have been okay if half of them were Latino? Like, what does it matter? What consequence? And yes, okay, I'm biased and I'm privileged because I'm white. What does it mean? What does it matter? I saw something on a show the other day, something to do with the medieval times, or maybe slightly before that. There were slaves and there was prejudice and there were all these things, but there was no racism because your skin color didn't matter. It was all about your class, your status, your how much money you made, how wealthy you were, what your religion was. That was the shit that people cared about. That was the stuff that divided people. They didn't care what skin color you were. If you were, the Black Knight, you could have been Asian. You could have. It doesn't matter. The White Knight was black. The Black Knight was white. They didn't see things that way. I think we need to go back to that, because the skin color thing, just like as far as I'm concerned, the gender, the sexual preference has absolutely no bearing on anything. Okay, it doesn't. It just doesn't. Anyway, I sound like an old man when I get down these roads, don't I? Anyway, last one here. Unvaccinated New York City teachers win back their jobs with back pay. That's a hell of a win right there. A New York City judge said that city officials were arbitrary and capricious when they denied exemption claims to the vaccine mandate. There you go. I have an exemption, right? Whatever my reason is none of your freaking business. Go away. You can't force me to medically experiment on myself or tell me that I can't frequent this establishment because I haven't undergone this experimental medical procedure. Let's not forget. People say that all the time with, like, remembering the troops and remembering the veterans and all. And yes, okay, sure, remember them too. But let's not remember the events of just a few years ago, of the way that we were treated, some of us, and the shit that we allowed in our society that was just completely unacceptable, that would never fly or any other scenario, never be acceptable. Certainly not calling the freaking War Measures Act or whatever it was, like, Emergency Act. The emergency there was not COVID, obviously. It was something else. More of a mental health concern than anything. I think the delusions of grandiosity kind of got to some people, and it went to their heads to the point where some of their heads probably like actually exploded. It slowed things down for a second, and it made some of them think like, "All right, we've got it." It's like when you're playing chess against somebody who you're a better chess player, but you just pulled a stupid move. You pulled a boner, and now you screwed it up. And you got cocky, and you got caught with your pants down, and now you're going to pay. That's exactly what happens. You can't count your chickens till they hatch. So anyway, those are the Freedom Wins for November, issue number 36. Was it 30? Sorry, yeah, 36. Issue number 36, November 2023. That'll do it for November. We've done the Absurdity Observer last time, and then we just did the Freedom Wins. No good news tidbits, but there's plenty of good news in here, actually. In this one, okay? Check out this article. I really loved it a lot. I actually printed it. The ones I really enjoy, I'll print them. And I printed this one here just because I liked it so much. Where is it? It's in the November one anyway. You'll find it. Well, It's Time for an Apology was a good one. I like that one. That was good too. But there's another one in here. I took it out to print it, so maybe I didn't put it away. Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, I have the printout right here. And it basically says, The Emotional Chaos of Awakening. Check that one out. I'll put it up on the screen in case you want to pause the video and take a look at it if you can't find it online, but it's written by Anonymous, so good luck finding it. But that's a really nice little heartwarming article. I really liked that one. I was encouraged by it, and it's nice to know that there's other people out there that are kind of going through the same thing, that are towing the line, that are doing the great work. It's nice to know that you're not alone sometimes, because there's more work out there than just one human can handle. We have to really band together, and we got to work together because everyone's good at something different. I'll just end with one final note here is I work with a lot of different teams. I work with a lot of different people. I work with people from all over the world, all kinds of different backgrounds, all kinds of ethnicities, and all of that stuff, like I was saying earlier, none of that stuff matters. I work with gay people, straight people, bi people. That stuff, first of all, doesn't come up because it's irrelevant to the conversation. If someone brought that up, quite honestly, it would be very awkward and weird to bring up in a business setting. So I find that, first of all, that's extremely strange when that happens. And that has happened in my line of work, but those occasions are few and far between. It's quite rare. But when it does happen, it's kind of, it's jarring, it's startling for a lot of people, myself included. But that's definitely not, that's the exception, that's not the rule. For the most part, it has no bearing, has no place in our business conversations. So why even bring it up? Why even make it an issue? Because it's not an issue. It's a non-issue. So, but the reason I bring that up is, out of all the teams that I work with, none of this stuff, okay, that happens at the global level, that happens at the UN scale, that happens at the incorporated country level, the de facto government level, none of that stuff that happens, that realm of commerce happens in my private line of commerce. I don't see it. In all my dealings in the law of the sea, I just don't see it. Everybody else, not everybody, but you know what I mean? At least in my experience, I could say everybody. I've not had a single business interaction that I didn't voluntarily go into knowing that there were some risks, but I've not been intentionally screwed over. I have not been disrespected. Everything has been very copacetic, has been very respectful on both sides in most, if not all, of my recent business interactions. The private corporate world is one of morals and ethics and good dealings and reputation, right? The world of de facto government cares not for reputation. What does that mean? What does that matter? That to them, that doesn't matter. You see, and you see the things that they consider important and worthy of attention and energy. You see where their priorities are, and then you compare that with the things that are at the very, very basic level that they're not even doing on the moral and ethical side, but they're advocating for things that are so marginal. You know what I mean? Like they're so inconsequential. So, I mean, my point, I guess, is that all of those different teams, all those different people, all those different personalities, they're very complex. But in the end, deep down, they're all similar as well. It's the concept of namaste, of the divinity, the godliness in me recognizes the godliness in you. And I will treat you as though you are my Messiah, my prophet, my God, because there's a little spark of the divine in all of us. And imagine the world we would have. Now, I know I'm a dreamer and I say these things often, but honestly, imagine what a beautiful world we could live in if we all treated each other accordingly as such. That there's a little spark of the divine in each and every one of us, and that will be the foundation of our moral and ethical codes. Not how much money or what sort of business opportunity is there in XYZ, but rather what is the long-term impact of that business deal? What do we stand to gain, but what do we stand to lose? And what do the people around us stand to lose? Because, again, like the golden rules have taught us, do unto others, right? So I'm not going to do things to other people, not simply for fear of them doing that to me later on, but just because it's so easy to empathize with them, to imagine what it would be like to have someone like you doing that to them, to you. It's very easy to imagine yourself in their shoes, and when that happens, it creates instant empathy. And it's much more difficult to be violent or to be cruel, unfeeling to someone, especially when you're standing right there face to face. And we've forgotten that in our digital age of convenience. But really, when you're standing right next to someone face to face, it's a lot more difficult to be cruel and hateful and bigoted, and prejudiced, and not as easy as when you're behind your little keyboard and your computer screen trying to act tough, So I think that's the lesson too in all this, is like when I work with my teams, I try to do it as if I was really there with them. We're in an office space and we're conducting business and commerce together. How would I treat them? How would I be? How could I demonstrate my respect and how much I value their dignity and their well-being and their happiness in all of our business affairs, right? It's a reciprocal nature of proper business. Like, I don't know how else to say it. And quite honestly, I've said enough. So I'm going to end it there. It ended up being a little bit longer, but freedom wins because I had some good little tirades, if you will. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. That'll do it for November, issue number 36. But join next time where we're going to do again the Absurdity Observer, which is always fun to do the back cover. And it'll either be Good News Tidbits or Freedom Wins, whichever one happens to be in the December page. And if there's none, well, maybe we can dig up a Bev McDonald article or something uplifting and inspiring. So, till then, be well, take care. See you then.